Hello, my name is Jose. I'm doing a quick video on, actually, it's not really quick, it's 20 minutes. It is to set up Java to talk to QuickBooks using the QBXML library via the COM component. The reason I'm doing this video is because I had many challenges with trying to get the project set up. I thought, I got it set up. Why not help a few people? Because this is the kind of video that I was actually looking for before I spent a few days trying to get this working. So here we go. Okay, so here we're installing Corretto 11 SDK, or I'm sorry, JDK 64-bit. I'm going to show you how to set up the project so you can actually use 64-bit or 32-bit. That was another challenge I had trying to get that set up. So next we're going to install the Jetbrains IDE, the community edition. The project that I'm going to post on GitHub is going to be a Intellij project using Gradle. So next I'm going to install the Enterprise Edition 20 of QuickBooks. Obviously, if you have yours installed, you don't have to do this. Okay, next we're going to install the SDK. I also want to say that I will provide all the links down in the description. When you go to download the SDK, just remember that you'll have to create a developer account, which is free. So once you log in, you have access to the SDK, you can download it. This will install all the SDK tools, but it'll also installs the COM components in the background. Here you see that there is a request for .NET 2.0. I figured because of the age of some of these tools, I just said yes, just to make sure that that wasn't going to be an issue. And then, of course, after the SDK is done, the .NET installation will start. Then we're going to go to the Jacob library website to download the library. This library allows Java to talk to the COM component. Once you download it, go ahead and unzip it. Then what we're going to do now is I'm going to create a project in Intellij. Here I'm using Gradle as my build tool, but you can use Maven, or if you don't want to use a tool, just know that you'll have to set up the libraries manually. We'll go over the code line by line. What I want to do now is make sure that you understand how to set up the project, but because that's kind of critical to the library. You'll notice that I'm creating a lib folder inside the project, and this is so that I can copy over the Jacob library and the DLLs. There was a lot of information online that you had to copy it over to the 32-bit, the system 32-bit or the system. That's not true. I've been able to run it with it just being in the library. Once you copy that over, you can add the dependency in Gradle, or obviously if you're using Maven or no build tool, you just add the library manually. Okay, here I am adding all the imports needed. Okay, So I wanted to go over the code now with you. Obviously, this is just a very simple code that's going to connect via the COM component and send an XML file, XML request. So the first two are based on the permission. The first one is how much permission QuickBooks has. You can go into the documentation to edit this if you want to. This permissive mode is pretty much open, so you'll be able to access everything. The QB access mode is specifically for single user or multi-user mode. The way it's set up now is both modes can be used. The string that I'm using here for file location, this is where you can put your file location, but make sure that you're escaping it. This is if you want to connect to the file without the user being, without the user having QuickBooks open. The way it's set up now is it will require QuickBooks to be open. The XML request, I'm going to be filling that out later. That's what you're sending to the COM component to get your information, send your query, or even put information in. The app ID is really not needed. That's kind of for the DLL. It's best just to leave it alone, leave it blank. The application name, this is going to be the name that's going to show up on QuickBooks when you run the application the first time, if the person's going to give permission to the application. The session manager here, we're using the QBXML request processor 2. The session manager is connecting to the QBXML request processor. So next we have the session manager. Then we are doing our connection using the IP app ID as blank, which means that it's going to just, it's really not needed. The application name, that's going to be the name that's going to pop up in QuickBooks, and of course the permissive mode. And then the next line is going to be starting the session. And of course, with the file location being blank, it's going to want to connect to the open QuickBooks instance. And then of course, the QB access mode, whether it be single or multi-user or both. In this case, it's set for both. Now for the API response, this is what's going to come back. You're going to have your ticket, and then of course your XML request. So what you're doing is you're putting in the request, and then of course the API response is going to come back. Here I'm just printing it to the screen, and I'm closing the session, ending the session and closing the connection. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to try to run the application just so that you can see that it is going to fail. And the reason it's going to fail at this point is that it doesn't know the path to the DLLs. And you can see here, as you can see here, the Jacob, it's trying to look for the Jacob 1.19 and it cannot find it. So what we're going to do is edit the configuration here and add a VM option. Now remember, if you're going to be doing your own app or packaging it, this has to be set to where the library is at. So now we're going to try to run it. And we're going to get another error, and I understand that. So here we're going to get an error, and it's going to be called can't co-create object. The reason that you're getting this error is because the COM component that QuickBooks has is 32-bit. So if you're using 32-bit Java, or, well, 32-bit Java, you will not have any problem. It'll actually connect to this point. But if you're using a 64-bit version of Java, then this error will occur, and you're going to have to go into the registry and create what's known as a DLL surrogate, so that your 64-bit Java will connect to the 32-bit COM. So I'm going to exit the IDE for now. And I'm going to open up my registry editor. Okay, so now that we have the registry editor open, we're going to be searching specifically for inside of HKey class root. We're going to go into the WOW 6432 node, and then we're going to go into the CLS ID. and we're going to search for specifically the DLL, the library. So I'm going to just jump over here real quick, copy the name. It's the QBXMLRP2. Paste, search, and we find our first component. So here we're going to grab the GUID. You do want to get the brackets also. I'm going to put it in a file for now just so that I know which one I'm working with. So here we're going to create the app ID string and put in the GUID. Make sure to put in also the brackets. Then we're going to go into the WOW6432 node, app ID, create a new key, and call it the GUID with the brackets. Inside of the GUID, make sure to add a string value, and it's going to be called DLL Sarrogate. So once again, I'm going to search for that key to see if there's any other components that are using it. This is the original one, so I'm going to search again. I actually know that there's two. So here we have the second GUID. So we're going to go ahead and grab it with the brackets, go and create inside the GUID after I save it. So here we're going to create the app ID and put in the GUID, and then we're going to go into the WOW64 32-bit node under the app ID and then create a new key with that GUID. And of course, we're going to put the DLL surrogate string in here. Now, at this point, the 64-bit version of Java will work with the COM. The reason that we're getting this error now is we didn't start QuickBooks. So we're going to start QuickBooks and open up a sample file. I'm going to quickly create an XML that was online in one of the tutorials, and I'm going to change the customer name. So that it'll actually pull live information in. So let's grab this customer name, Christina. And we're going to copy the entire XML. Make sure to set the QBXML version to 13.0, 13. This is the newest library available. So I'm going to go into the XML request here, and I am going to paste the XML inside of the double quotes. This will create an escaped string. I'm going to update the request ID so that it's using a random UUID. So I'm going to go ahead and add that library. to run it. Here we're going to get the request from the application to access the QuickBooks company file. So here we're going to look up what happened. The XML text string, QuickBooks found an error parsing the XML text string. We're going to go up to our XML and take a look at it. And I can see that I left the ending brackets. So let me fix that. And I'm going to run the application. No errors. And if you look at the output, we actually have the customer's information in an XML response. At this point, you would parse the XML. Also remember, anything that you send over to the XML, you're going to have to escape, or not escape, you're going to have to make sure that it's XML friendly. There's a few libraries that are available that you can use. Okay, so what I did here was I actually snapshotted, this is a virtual machine, and I reversed what we did with the registry. And the reason I did that was so that I can show you an easier way to apply those strings, those regedit strings, that you could possibly also script into your installation if you're doing an application for a customer. I'm just going to go in here and just create a regular file and call it reg. I'm going to paste these keys. These are all the keys that we created. I just exported them and put them here. And I'm going to double click and run the registry. You're going to go ahead and or import the registry key, go ahead and allow it. And now if we go back to the application and we hit run, let's go ahead and start QuickBooks again, and we will open the sample file. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try to run the application again, asking for permission because I did snapshot it back, so I went back to a snapshot, so it doesn't have that permission, but now it does. And as you can see, we have a response for that customer. So real quick, I wanted to turn over to the installers. You'll find the installers, and I will have them in the link below under Program Files 86, Intuit IDN, the QBXDK13 Tools installers. The one that you will need to install on the client's system will be the QBXMLRP2 installer. This can be distributed with your application, so there's no licensing issue. For further, go ahead and read the SDK documentation. I also wanted to show you a few tools that are extremely helpful in editing the XML files. You will have for here, for testing, I'm going to grab another XML request, put it into a file, save it, go back to also here, make sure that it's, again, the 13 version of the QBXML. Now here you can, in the request file, you can go ahead and browse to the file. If you want to open a file that's not opened by QuickBooks, you can put the company file above. Here you see that you have different auth flags that you can put in there. This will do exactly like the application. It'll open it up, and of course, if it doesn't have authority, it's going to request it. Then I'm going to send the XML over to the request processor, and you can see the output here. This is nice to test your XML responses if you need to look at them. If you go back to the location of the original XML, you'll also find a QB response. This is the actual XML response that you saw when we opened it up. It's just going to be in an XML format or XML file. Here we're going to open the XML Validator. We're going to leave it as is, the US edition. The XML file, we're going to go ahead and add that my test again. And we're going to run the validator, and you'll notice that the instance is valid because it is valid, but I'm going to go in here and actually make an error. Run the validator again, and you can see exactly where the error is at. When you're doing a lot of XML, sometimes it's helpful to be able to get the string, put it in here, and figure out what's wrong with the XML and why QuickBooks is rejecting it. Hope that helped. Have a good day.